Hello movie nerds, and welcome back to Cinematic Sarcastic, a podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the new Haunted Mansion, but before we dive into that, I just wanted to update a couple of things really quick before we launch into the review. The first being, I've updated a few of the settings on my microphone and gotten a windscreen, so hopefully this is better sound quality. Let me know if it's not, and I will make a couple of more adjustments and see what I can do there. The second thing being, you might have noticed that we skipped straight from Oppenheimer to Haunted Mansion. And I will say, yes, I have seen Barbie. No, I did not enjoy it. I went kind of back and forth with whether or not I was going to do a review on Barbie. And if you've listened to me for any amount of time, you will know my biggest pet peeve and my ultimate frustration are movies that push some kind of an agenda or have some sort of propaganda, I guess, is the only thing I can think of. And Barbie is 100% that. Now, that's not the reason that I decided not to review it. The reason why I decided not to review it is basically everything that I have seen around Barbie on social media has seemed incredibly toxic and incredibly hateful, and that's just not something that I want to continue to give a platform to. So I think Barbie has enough of a marketing budget that it's doing just fine whether or not I do a podcast review on it. So that being said, let us jump into the 2023 version of Haunted Mansion. Now, I have definitely seen the original, the one starring Eddie Murphy, and I remember when that one came out, I very much liked it. I am probably one of a small percentage of people that really liked Eddie Murphy and the comedic sort of elements to Haunted Mansion. I thought it was quite fun. I enjoyed it enough that was one of the first video games. Haunted Mansion was one of the first video games that I got back into, I think on my PS1 a million years ago, when I got back into video games as an adult. This version is not my favorite. I would say the original version with Eddie Murphy is better than this one. I think that of the, 157 million that the remake of Haunted Mansion cost, the majority of that budget, I would say, was just actors, that they put the majority of the budget towards getting names to draw in a crowd, which didn't really seem like that worked very well, considering that the theater that I went to see it in was mostly empty. Beyond that, I would say the remainder of the budget was spent on CGI. This one, though it had a good message and all of that stuff, I don't think that this is a Disney film that kids and parents will both enjoy. I think a lot of the star power, oddly enough, ended up not really being in the movie all that much. For instance, Jamie Lee Curtis, for whatever reason, is mostly just a CGI head. I think she's only in it for maybe 2 minutes as an actual, person, as legitimately Jamie Lee Curtis. The rest of the time, it's just a CGI version of her face. I want to say there's a couple other actors in here, like Dan Levy, for instance, and Winona Ryder, that I wasn't necessarily sure, other than the star power bringing in a public name that people would enjoy, why they were really in it. They didn't contribute too much, especially Dan Levy. I was very disappointed with not his performance, but I was disappointed that you really see him for 30 seconds. And that seems like an utter waste of his comedic genius to have him in it for such a short little stint. I think it would have probably lent better if Dan Levy had actually been part of the main crew And I'm not sure why he wasn't. Now, another thing that kind of bothered me about this one is that they got Jared Leto to play sort of the villain of Haunted Mansion, but you never see him. And I'm not even all that sure whether or not he voiced the character, because the voice is so different. Like, it doesn't sound like Jared Leto. If he did do it, that's amazing. Like, he did a great job as far as changing his voice enough to sound like a different character. But his character, really, other than a couple of paintings that you see throughout the film, his character is entirely CGI and obviously like a ghost. And some of the things in here I wasn't quite sure. Like, some of the ghosts look realistic. Some of the ghosts looked very cartoonish. I wasn't sure why the difference between those things, or why they didn't like stick with a certain kind of characteristic with all of the ghosts in the movie. Beyond that, I don't know. I felt like it was pretty silly, kind of goofy. I think as a family-friendly film, which this one I would definitely say was, I don't know that there would be a large age group of kids that would enjoy this one. I think probably older than 12 or 13, they're not going to really get too much out of it. And depending on whether or not your kids are like scared of things like this, that might not also be a good a good movie for them. So really, you're kind of looking between the ages of maybe 7 and 10 or 7 to 12 that are gonna enjoy this movie. And it wasn't one that I felt was like particularly enjoyable as an adult. There were a couple of funny moments, and again, like a heartfelt sort of message there. But a lot of the story was incredibly predictable, as I imagined it would be. And I just don't remember it being like as fun and as funny as the original. So for me, Haunted Mansion 2023 was not really as good as I was expecting, considering the star power that they had here. You know, Rosario Dawson is in this, Jamie Lee Curtis, Danny DeVito, Owen Wilson, Tiffany Haddish. Like, they had a lot of really what I would consider larger name actors, but the performances were mediocre to me, and the script writing itself was kind of dull. So not a remake that I think Disney has done well, which kind of surprises me. I mean, it seems weird to say that because I know most of Disney's remakes have been sort of flops, but I think that this one is something that they could have easily made good again, considering that the first one I feel like was sort of ish a flop. I don't know that, you know, the majority of audiences enjoyed that first one, and I don't think the critics enjoyed it at all. Again, it was something that I enjoyed just because I really love Eddie Murphy. I think it was great. And again, I really liked the video game. I remember not ever being able to solve any of the Haunted Mansion puzzles in the video game, which is not surprising because puzzles are still, I hate puzzles in video games. I'll just say that. But yeah, I prefer the original. I think if I was going to sit down and watch one of the Haunted Mansion movies with my kids, I would pick the original with Eddie Murphy. I was a little disappointed that Jared Leto didn't actually like act out his character. I think honestly, if they had just like put some makeup on him and made him look dead, it might have been better, because even the character that he played as a dead person didn't look a thing like him. So I don't know if really potentially they just ran out of budget and couldn't get Jared Leto to actually act in the film, and that he could only do voiceovers. But yeah, that was something that was a little bit disappointing for me. The set I thought was great, but again, the majority of this movie is really just CGI, which I was not expecting. So yeah, I don't know. Those are my thoughts on the 2023 Haunted Mansion. I would love to know yours if you have seen this one. Subscribe if you want to join the Movie Nerd family, and I hope to see you in the next episode.